We are a partner of both Springbot and Magento eCommerce software. I'm going to turn the webinar over to Joe here from Springbot so he can kind of walk us through the 10 things you can do to increase revenue in 6 months. If you have questions during the webinar, please feel free to enter them into the questions box. I will answer them throughout the broadcast, or we will ask them of Joe and his team at the end. Joe, I'll turn it over to you now.
Great. Thanks, Holly. Thanks, everyone, for showing up. And thanks, Holly, for inviting us. It's been great working with Levementum so far, and we look forward to keeping that partnership going. So we're going to talk today about 10 things that you can do to increase your revenue in the next 6 months. Quick slide showing you what I look like with my little Springbot there. This was obviously taken in the winter. I was wearing a sweater. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Springbot. We started Springbot about 3 years ago. And so as part of our agenda here, we thought we'd run through very quickly who Springbot is, tell you the problems we solve, define what marketing with intelligence means, and then get to the meat of the presentation, which is the top 10 things you can do to increase your revenue in the next 6 months. And then we've got some time for some Q&A at the end, so definitely put those questions into the GoToMeeting box. So as I said, we started Springbot about 3 years ago. We're a Magento Gold partner. We're an e-commerce marketing platform. And we created this concept called marketing robotics. And so you've probably heard of marketing automation out there. What we wanted to do is bring data analytics to the table as well. So the idea here is that hidden within your data are the answers on how to grow your business. And so we wanted to put that together into a marketing platform. We had a customer tell us once, they said, you know, what I'd really love to have is a small army of marketing robots running around my data and finding things for me to do. And so that was part of the inspiration for the bot part of our name Springbot. The other was that we are located on Spring Street in Atlanta, Georgia. So we went out and we talked to 250 e-commerce stores before we started building anything at all. And we tried to understand what their main motivations are, what their drivers are, and what the main problems that they're dealing with are. And we came up with 3 big buckets. The first bucket is that there are too many tools out there. So every day there's a new Facebook, a new Pinterest, a new Vine. There's something coming out of Silicon Valley that promises to help me connect with my market. It's hard to make sense of all those. The second is that e-commerce stores want to do smarter marketing, quite simply. So they read the case studies in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal about Walmart, about Target, about Amazon, and they say, I know I can do smarter marketing, but I don't quite know how to go about doing that. And then finally, very importantly, e-commerce merchants are very pragmatic. They want to know where the ROI is. They want to know that when they invest some time, they're getting something for it. They're getting sales out of that investment. So that kind of brings us to this notion of marketing intelligence, which is a big piece of how Springbot solves these 3 problems. And so marketing intelligence is the everyday information relevant to a company's markets, gathered and analyzed specifically for the purpose of accurate and confident decision-making in determining market opportunity, market penetration strategy, and market development metrics. All of which sounds pretty awesome, and I think I understand most of it, but really mostly Kelly told me I had to say that. So I wanted to boil it down for you. In its simplest form, marketing intelligence is using data to grow your business. It's kind of having that opinion that amongst all the databases that house your Magento and your Google Analytics and your Twitter account, somewhere in there is that nugget of information that's going to help you be smarter about the next thing that you do in your e-commerce marketing. And so this creates the concept of data-driven marketing. The idea here is that you analyze your data, you analyze all the haystack, you come up with a recommendation. And by that we mean a recommendation that's driven by data that tells you to do something concrete. So this might be send a tweet or send women an email with this product. We then help you take that action. And then very importantly, you have to track the outcome of that action and plug it back into the system. So you can see this becomes a kind of a cyclical, constantly getting smarter sort of system. And that's really what we're looking for when it comes to marketing intelligence and data-driven marketing. So with that, we're going to dig in. We're going to go one by one through the top 10 things that you can do to increase your revenue. The first thing is to connect all of your marketing tools into a single dashboard. And the reason is really quite simple. Right now you get a Google Analytics report, you get a Magento report, you get a Twitter Analytics report. If you're using Hootsuite, they've got analytics in there. All of these are phenomenal tools. We love them and we use them every day. The problem is every tool has an opinion on how they report and how they display and how they allow you to filter. And it becomes very hard to get a really clear view of one channel versus another. And so by plugging everything into a single tool, what you're able to get is this apples-to-apples comparison of a tweet that you do versus, say, a Facebook post, versus a Pinterest campaign, versus an email. Only when you get that single unified view can you really start to answer that core question of what's the smartest thing that I should be doing with my time. Springbot, of course, makes it very simple for you to do that. We have a plugin on the Magento Connect Marketplace. If you're on this webinar, I'm guessing you're fairly familiar with Magento and their App Store, but it's kind of like the Apple iTunes App Store where you go in, click to install a plugin, and it runs on your phone. In this case, it runs on your e-commerce store. And the outcome of that is a dashboard that looks something like this. So this is the main Springbot dashboard, and you can see the data-driven marketing recommendations. We're going to dig deeply into this throughout the presentation, but I just wanted to make the point that by plugging everything together, you can get a report that goes across channels. And you're going to see this report quite a few times throughout the presentation. This is the Apple. This is the apple-to-apple comparison. So in this case, it's a Twitter campaign. And as I scroll down, I can see a demographic breakdown of people who responded to the campaign. And then below that, I can see the exact people who clicked on the Twitter campaign. But the key here isn't to focus on the report. It's just to note that you can get this exact report for any marketing action that you do, and that there's power in having an apples-to-apples comparison. So with that, we're going to move on to the second thing that you can do, and that's leveraging full-cycle attribution. So to describe this, I'm going to kind of highlight the fact that right now in your e-commerce universe, you've got three primary types of data. You've got product and inventory data, so these are the SKUs that you sell. You've got traffic data, so this is usually stored within Google Analytics, but it's a report on what people are viewing. And then you've got customer data, so these are the addresses and emails of your customers. And then maybe you append that with social and demographic data via tools like Rapleaf or FlipTop. And so for each of these, again, you have a dashboard, you have a system that tracks each one individually, but there can be a problem with that. Imagine, for example, that you promote on Twitter a certain product, and you notice that you get a ton of traffic from it. Well, I think that's definitely an indicator that you're getting sales, but it's not the full story. It's not the full cycle that says, I posted on Twitter, I got this traffic, and then it drove these specific customers to my store. The reason you want to go full cycle is that you want to make sure that you can answer the question, are these the right customers that I'm driving to the store? In other words, are they high customer lifetime value customers that I'm attracting? So a lot of channels, they will attract the folks who buy once, return their item, and then never buy again, or they buy once and complain about you on some other channel. So you have to go full cycle and make sure that you're comparing your traffic to the actual value of the customer. And to do that, you need to unite all three of these pieces of data. We've done some other webinars, and I think what we can do is make sure that we share out on Twitter and Facebook some of the URLs for those, where we've really delved into this smart link concept. But the point I would make is that the thing that ties this full cycle together is the notion of a smart link, where you combine it with a cookie that gets set on your store to do the full cycle attribution. The power of it is that you can answer these very important questions that are kind of key and strategic to your store. So one of the ones I like most is, which marketing campaigns attracted customers with a high customer lifetime value? That's the campaign you want to keep doing. So to kind of make that point, we wanted to give you a case study. This was a high-end women's accessories store. They've been selling online for a couple of years, been very successful, growing year over year. When we started working with them, they told us that social doesn't sell. And it's one of those somewhat common thoughts that we hear out there. And so we said, well, that's a fair belief that you have. Let's go test it. So what we did is we plugged in the full cycle attribution tool. We plugged in Springbot, and we tracked all of their marketing activity for 3 months. So we tracked all their social, their email, their ad roll, all the other stuff that they did. And what we showed them fairly quickly is that social played a role in 21% of all of their sales. Now, it wasn't necessarily the last click, but it was playing a role in all of those sales. And so that was a pretty big insight for them. It was something that they wouldn't have been able to get with a non-full cycle attribution tool, and it really changed their behavior. So the first thing they did is, obviously, they started posting more social social links and more social pictures. They invested in that. And the second thing is they actually hired someone in-house to do social. They realized that it was playing this important role, even though they weren't investing in it. So we certainly believe that any insight has to drive a change in behavior. So that second thing that we're recommending is getting some sort of full cycle attribution that looks at the full value of the customer that you're driving with your marketing activity. The third thing we're going to dig into is customer segmentation. And the underlying theory here is fairly well known to folks. It's the basic notion that if you have targeted messaging for someone, it leads to a more emotional connection and you're going to have a better response. If you think back to the early days of commerce, back in the Stone Age, you had a one-to-one relationship with everybody who you interacted with. In this day and age, you certainly can't do that. If you've got thousands of customers, you can't personalize an email to everybody. And so what you end up doing a lot of times is a batch and blast, where you send out the same message to everybody at once, and you're kind of missing, you're missing the mark, but you also know that you need to get something out at scale. And so what customer segmentation allows you to do is bridge the gap between one-to-one marketing and that batch and blast. And so the idea here is that you create 2, 3, 4 key segments within your customer database and then send them 2, 3, 4 messages, which you can probably do. You certainly have to invest in the content, but it's not as much as sending out thousands. So at Springbot, what we did is we created this very simple to use segmentation tool. We didn't want it to be complex. We didn't want you to have to learn SQL or do any sort of math or programming or coding. If you want to create a segment, you simply select the thing that you want to segment based on. From there, in this case, we clicked on gender, so you would then click female. We then might click on the number of orders, and in this case, we select customers who've bought 2 to 50 times. So these are repeat customers. These are higher value folks that we want to engage. And then I want to find folks who are on Facebook. In other words, folks that I know are operating in a social realm. And so once I've kind of built that up very visually, I click Save, and Springbot comes back. It parses through all your customers and says, hey, for that criteria, you've got a segment of about 20,000 customers that you can interact with. And the first thing that Springbot does is it says, here's what their revenue looked like over the last few periods of time. Here's their average order value. And then very importantly, here's the lifetime value of that customer. And so you might find that customers on Facebook are worth $304. Customers that are coming from Twitter are worth $20. And that should have a pretty big impact on the way that you market to each of them. Scrolling down further, you can see sales trends. So you can start to get a sense of seasonality. You might what we find a lot of times is that men and women buy different products at different points in the year. Scrolling down further, you can very quickly see what people in this segment buy. So if you're considering putting some ads on Facebook or doing a new Facebook campaign, you might create your own custom Facebook segment, see what the top products that they're buying are, and then promote those products out on Facebook to obviously try to get more sales. And then further down, you get a demographic breakdown above and beyond the demographics that you selected in the segment. So in this case, we selected all females. but you also get age and income breakout, where there's usually quite a bit of eye-opening data down there when you really understand what your customers are doing and what their behavior is. So that third thing is creating custom segments so that you can understand who your market is. And so, of course, once you have those segments built up, the next thing you're going to want to do is interact with them. You're going to want to send them email. And so with Springbot, we have a deep integration with MailChimp. We also work with a bunch of other mail systems out there, ESPs, ListTrack, Bronto, Constant Contact, and others. Basically, you build up your campaign as you normally would. So we don't want to take over that email building side of things. But then once you have it built and ready to send, you come into Springbot. You choose the campaign that you're going to send. In this case, the Getting Gear campaign. And then this is where the custom segments come into play. You can decide which segments to send to on the left, and then on the right, you can remove people who are in any other segment. So in this case, we've chosen males that we're going to send to. I could imagine removing people who bought T-shirts. And in fact, I can get a lot more complex than that. I could say males and then remove anybody who bought a T-shirt in the last 3 weeks, because maybe I'm going to hit them with a heavy T-shirt promotion or something like that. So you can get as complex or go as simple as you want with these segments. Again, the goal of Springbot is to make it very simple and fluid for you to interact with your segments. Once you go ahead and click the next button, what we do is we send that segment data over to MailChimp or your email service provider of choice. And then the second thing we do is we create those smart links. So I kind of mentioned those before. I didn't go into a bunch of depth on them, but they're the glue that ties together an attribution system. So we take any link that you had in your email campaign and we convert it to a smart link. And the power of that, and I kind of alluded to it, but you're going to see this screen a whole bunch. This is the apples to apples screen. Now for email, I can see the apples to apples report. I can see how my campaign's performing, which demographics are responding to it, and then who exactly is purchasing as a result of that campaign. So I've now taken a custom segment and I'm getting an apples to apples comparison of emailing to that segment versus something else that I might be doing, like sending a tweet. The fifth thing we want to do is harness the power of triggered emails. And so you've probably heard of things like abandoned cart emails and win-back emails and automated emails. The main opportunity here is to make money while you sleep. And actually, we're kind of joking on that, but also we're kind of not. E-commerce is a 24/7 activity, and it takes a lot to be online 24/7, engaging your customers at that moment when they want to purchase from you. And so through triggered emails, what you're allowed to do is create a series of emails that are triggered at the moments where we know customers are about to buy. And we're going to run through in the next slide what those types of triggers are. But suffice to say, Springbot has a system where you can create and configure any number of these triggers based on any number of parameters. So in this case, what you're looking at is an abandoned cart email that goes out an hour after somebody abandons their cart. In this case, we're sending to all categories. But you can imagine if you're a clothes retailer, you might want to send a different message to somebody who had shoes in the cart than to somebody who had pants in the cart. And so we can do that splitting for you. We craft the email with you. There's a tool in here you can use to build it. And then we send it on your behalf. And of course, we give you all the reporting for each one of the triggers so you know what's working and what's not. The four primary types of triggers that we see out there in the wild. The first is abandoned cart. This is by far the most powerful one. Somebody comes to your site, they put items in the cart, they enter their email address, so they're clearly interested in buying, but then for whatever reason they disappear. And you want to be able to trigger an email to them within the next hour to get them back into the buy cycle with your store. So we see a lot of great return on that. The second is a first purchase email. So this is somebody who has never bought from you before, and then suddenly they make a first purchase. You can kind of welcome them to your community, tell them about your brand, tell them about your return policy, basically make them feel like they're part of something bigger than simply a transaction. The other cool thing you can do with first purchase is you can time it for 1 year after the first purchase and give them an anniversary email. So you can say, hey, thanks for being a customer for the last year. Here's a 5% off coupon, or maybe just here's an attaboy for you. Post-purchase, go out after every purchase that somebody makes. We usually see these used for reviews. Come back to the site maybe a week later and review the product. That helps you with SEO. And then finally, our win-back campaigns. So every store has their own custom retention cliff. And if somebody falls off the retention cliff, maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, but if they don't buy from you for 3 months or 6 months or whatever your retention cliff is, you have to go pay money to market to them again to get them to be a customer. And so it's very much in your interest, if they haven't bought in a while, to get them to buy again. And so what we usually see people do with our win-back campaigns is set up an escalating series of messages that start out with something after maybe 2 months that says, hey, we noticed you haven't bought anything from us in a couple months. Why don't you come back soon? We've got some great new products. Then maybe the following month, here's a 5% coupon, and the following month, a 10% coupon plus some free shipping. Key point here being it's worth investing in your current customers. It's cheaper to keep them than it is to go track down new ones. And so we're going to come back to the Springbot dashboard here. We're still talking about triggered emails. And what you'll notice there is that there's a recommendation about triggered emails. And if I were to click that, what I would get is a summary of the performance of each of the triggers that I have set up. And this is pretty cool. It'll show me the open rate, the click-through rate, and the total number of sales that I'm getting for that triggered email. But then even more importantly, and this is the market intelligence, this is the data-driven side of things, we're able to make a recommendation based on the data. So in this case, we notice that your click-through rate is a little below average. Consider refreshing your content. So of course, if the open rate was low, we tell you to go customize your subject. If your click-through rate is low, we're going to recommend tweaking your content, and on and on. So there's a series of recommendations that we make based on what we're seeing in the data. And in fact, in the 120-day win-back, your conversion rate is low, and so we recommend what you can do to fix that. So again, this is kind of the data-driven marketing piece of it. If something's working, leave it alone. If something's broken, we're going to give you guidance on how to fix it. Retargeting, definitely something that a lot of us have heard a lot about. Again, it's one of those automatic features that makes money while you sleep. The basic notion is that somebody goes to your store, they look at this elegant blue and white striped tie, and then they leave your site. So they go off here to the New York Times, and they start reading the New York Times. We're able to put the product that they were looking at on your store into an ad on the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or weather.com. The underlying theory here is that if I was on your site and I expressed interest in this tie, then seeing it out there in the wild is going to be much more likely to get me to click and come back to your site than some other ad that's a little more generic. It's kind of a personalization of ads, if you will. The difficulty with these is that to set them up, you have to make sure that all the ad networks, Google, Yahoo, and others, have all of your images, all the links to your store, and they have some way to understand which customers viewed which products. And so the plumbing behind it is actually very, very tricky, but Springbot makes it push-button simple. Literally, you sign up with Springbot, you push a button, and we work with our partner AdRoll to deliver retargeting for you. And we can deliver all sorts of retargeting. We can do Facebook retargeting, mobile retargeting. We can do all sorts of ad formats. And it's one of the things that really distinguishes the platform and helps people drive revenue back to their store. Number 7, getting smarter about social. So the first question that a lot of people ask, and I think we kind of alluded to this, is social media driving sales? And the answer is that yes. In almost all cases that we've seen, social is playing a role in sales, but it's very, very rarely the last click. So if you think about the way that you use social these days, you kind of collaborate and engage with your friends on Facebook or on Twitter. You're not really in the buying moment. So when you do click on a link, you'll learn about a product, but you're not going to buy at that exact point. The other thing that's going on in the space right now is that a lot of traffic, in many cases north of 50% on social networks, is mobile. And that means that when somebody clicks from that social network to your site, there's not any attribution stream that's retained if you're not using trackable links. And so one of the things that we recommend is that you use a trackable link tool, a smart link tool, and in this case to post to the robots and parts store. And then here you can kind of see this set of string numbers and letters here is the trackable piece that gets you to the point where you can get back to that apples-to-apples comparison. And so you can't really optimize your social campaigns until you understand what each of them is actually delivering to you. So back to the apples-to-apples comparison, instrument your links, get them set up with proper attribution that's full cycle, then you get some data, and then you can really get smarter about social. You can let that data start to drive you. And part of what Springbot delivers is a set of recommendations on the dashboard that are data-driven based on this data that you're seeing to help you optimize social. Number 8 is to focus on conversions. So we've talked a lot about driving traffic, about getting it to your store. You also want to make sure that once they're on your store that they're converting, that they're actually buying. Traffic is very expensive. So if you look at this product conversion report on Springbot, you'll notice that we report views, add to carts, and purchases at an individual SKU level. Now, you can certainly get views from Google Analytics, and you can certainly get purchases from Magento or whatever e-commerce solution you're using, but that's really not enough. If you think of the gap here between views and add to carts, that's what really reflects your conversion rate. It reflects how good your product page is at getting people to say, add to the cart. Then from add to cart, this gap over to purchase, that's more a reflection of your checkout process, your overall brand, your trustworthiness, how prominently you display SSL alerts. All this sort of stuff plays into your eventual total conversion rate. So if you're focusing on conversion, which certainly is something that everyone should be focusing on, you want to focus on this gap right here. And so with Springbot's product conversion report, you can sort based on total conversion, change in conversion. You can really dig in at a SKU and a product and a category level on things that are converting and things that aren't. Then within each of those products, within each SKU that you have, you can get a historical view of what that conversion rate was and what it is now. And so the power here is that you might make a change to your product page on May 13th. You might put a honking blue button that says, click here, click here to buy or add to cart. You might see your conversion go, in this case, it goes down a little bit. So you remove the blue button, you throw up a green one on May 27th, and you notice that conversion starts to go up. And so by having these trend lines, you can start to get some perspective on the changes that you're making to your product pages and how they're affecting, ultimately, the conversion rate. The other thing that Springbot tries to bring to the table is this notion of marketing actions and conversion. And so we're going to tell you, first of all, which custom segments are buying this product. So that gets you a sense of which personas, which people are actually buying. And then we tell you which actions you've taken that are driving sales of this product. So if you can imagine that in this case you've got 500,000 of these battery packs in your inventory, and you really want to push them, you just want to offload them, get rid of them, you can come down here and you can say, you figure out which customers are buying it. So imagine these are things like, women living in Iowa. That's a custom segment that you had set up previously, and you just noticed that they're buying batteries like crazy. And then you can figure out which actions across all your channels are working to sell them. So it might be a trackable link, it might be an email, but putting the two together, you have a pretty good formula, a pretty good data-driven formula on how to go about liquidating that inventory. All right, so getting down to the end here. Number 9 is to track everything with trackable links. So if you think about data-driven marketing, the key question you're trying to answer is what's working and what's not. And if you're not tracking everything, then the things that you are tracking are somewhat suspect. In other words, you're not tracking the full effect of all of your marketing. So at Springbot, we certainly know that we can't be integrated into every single platform out there. So we wanted to give you a facility, a tool that you could use to track really anything that you do online. And so if you've used Bitly, you've probably done something like this. Imagine that you want to link people to your robotsandparts.com to your new products page. And you go down here, you put it into this, you click Make It Trackable. And what Springbot will do is give you this shortened version of the link. And you can then take that link and post it out anywhere you want. So one of the good examples is if you decide for a while that strategically it's important to post to a bulletin board. Maybe you're a men's fashion retailer and you decide to post to Style Forum. Use this trackable link, give it a tag, something like Style Forum or Forum Posts, and then get back to the apples to apples screen that shows you exactly what you generated from that effort. In other words, if you're going to invest 3 weeks engaging a forum, make sure that you understand exactly which orders you get out of it. Make sure you can dig in and figure out what the customer lifetime value of those customers are. So those are the trackable links. And then finally is a plea in number 10 to instrument and attribute everything. And so we kind of alluded to this. The tool that you use is trackable links. But the power of that, kind of the outcome, if you will, is that you get this channel summary on the right hand, and it'll show you what's working and what's not. You can sort based on ROI. You can sort based on revenue. If you've got 15 other things that you're doing in marketing, then these reports here aren't actually all that accurate. You're kind of missing out on the full picture of what works and what doesn't. So the way that we help our store owners figure out, how accurately they're tracking everything in their marketing universe is to tell them what percentage of their sales are attributable back to a channel. And so in this case, a 91% tracked or 91% attributable is a great attribution percentage. It means that 91% of your sales, you have a good picture and a good understanding of what marketing drove that sale. That then feeds into the data engine, and that then fuels marketing intelligence. It fuels using data to make smarter decisions. And that's what we're certainly excited about here at Springbot. And we know in working with Levementum that they're certainly excited about doing the same sort of thing. It's been great to have the opportunity. Thanks to Holly for bringing us in to discuss this stuff. And hopefully there are some questions we can jump into.
Joe, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I don't have any questions in the question box at this time, so if there's not any questions, we'll go ahead and end it here, give everybody about 20 minutes back in their day, which is always helpful. And we will be sending out this recording and making it available, so if it's something you want to share with your team or your staff, or you have more additional questions later, please feel free to reach out to us. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.